So, I don't know if anyone's tried the new coconut Dr. Pepper. It's pretty good, but I've been thinking a bit about Ubisoft lately. Over the course of the past few months, I've noticed what could be a small change for the company, but what could also turn out to be something bigger. So, between a few new games and a video by the amazing YouTuber DJ Peach Cobbler, I decided that I wanted to make my own video. And there's no time like the present. To begin with, Ubisoft has started to release some smaller games. 2 of them are even on Netflix. Anyway, recently Ubisoft released Rainbow Six Small, a top-down roguelike shooter set in the Rainbow Six universe. It came out to very positive reviews, but it wasn't the only game Ubisoft released on Netflix. They also released a sequel to their 2014 much-beloved game Valiant Hearts: The Great War. The sequel to Valiant Hearts Coming Home, which actually came out in 2023, was received modestly well, but not as good as the original. However, I think it's still a step in the right direction. It's not another Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, or Watch Dogs. Thank God it's not another Watch Dogs. Not that there's anything wrong with those games, I guess, but I don't exactly love them, obviously. Ubisoft are at their best when they think outside the box, and don't just release another sequel. That's what I want to talk about. We need Ubisoft to embrace the creativity that they used to have. But I want to start out by talking about the beginning. Founded in 1986 after the formation of 2 other companies, the Guillemot family, I might be saying that wrong, decided to found Ubisoft and enter the publishing and development side of the business. They of course named it Ubisoft, or Ubiquitous Software, so it's pronounced Ubisoft, not Ubisoft. Their first few games were released in the 1980s and were not exactly very successful, selling in the low thousands of units. Then, for some reason, Yves Guillemot was appointed as CEO of the company and remains that way to this day. Then in the 90s and early 2000s, they spread across the globe and started to become the Ubisoft that we know today, making games like Splinter Cell, Rayman, Rainbow Six, and more. Not many developers can release games as different as Rainbow Six and Rayman, which is what always made Ubisoft so special. Then in 2007, they released their first title in what would become their most successful series, selling 200 million plus copies. In 2007, Ubisoft released the first Assassin's Creed game, and it got fairly positive reviews, landing somewhere in the high 7s, low 8s. Also, they were becoming one of the biggest publishers in the world while being different than the likes of EA or Activision, who released the same sports games or shooters over and over again. At least they were like that for a while. Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, the next 2 mainline entries in the series, were also held in much higher regard than the original, scoring in the 8s and 9s. A few years later, Ubisoft released their next big hit, Far Cry 3, which again not only garnered critical acclaim across the board, but also sold more than 10 million copies. It's also funny, as an aside, that Far Cry actually did not start out with Ubisoft. It was originally with a company called Crytek, another video game developer that made games like Crysis and Hunt Showdown. However, with Far Cry 3, Ubisoft was able to take the franchise to new heights. Then, with the PS4 on the horizon, Ubisoft released something that really separated themselves from the other big players, UbiArt, a video game engine made by Ubisoft especially for smaller games. For a while, Ubisoft actually released some games using this engine: Rayman, Child of Light, Valiant Hearts, and of course my personal favorite, Just Dance. They were all released in the later PS3 and the beginning half of the PS4 generations. Then, around 2014, the games just stopped being released. They vanished like the Avatar, replaced by more AAA games like the aforementioned Assassin's Creed and Far Cry's. Although Ubisoft wasn't completely done with creativity just yet. Although they were done with single-player games for a long while, at least smaller single-player games. Rainbow Six Siege, The Division, and For Honor all released between 2015 and 2017. Despite the fact that Rainbow Six and The Division were completely broken at launch, these 3 games were genuinely unique takes on genres Ubisoft had rarely made before. Despite the setbacks after years of work, all these games are thought of in a positive light now, especially Rainbow Six Siege, which at the time of writing has nearly 70,000 concurrent players on Steam alone. It was also around this time that Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was released, an XCOM-like strategy game starring Mario and company plus the Rabbids from the Rayman games. It got a ton of praise and even won the best strategy/sim game at the Game Awards. My point in saying this is that when Ubisoft wants to, when they decide something different or unique, the results are oftentimes great. They come up with ideas from multiple genres, from shooters to strategy games, and everything in between, and are oftentimes successful. There was even a point in the beginning that Assassin's Creed and Far Cry were unique, which brings us to the problem. Around the same time as all these unique games are coming out, Ubisoft figured out what their real cash cows were. Sure, the smaller UbiArt games got them some critical acclaim, but they were never going to print money, not like Watch Dogs, not like Far Cry, and definitely not like Assassin's Creed. So, instead of making some smaller UbiArt games and some AAA games, they doubled down on the AAA games. Now, years later, and there are over 10 Far Cry games, and an astounding 20 plus Assassin's Creed games. In 2017, Ubisoft reimagined the Assassin's Creed formula from a stealth game to an action RPG, and that was very successful. However, these games, especially AC Valhalla, received a fair amount of backlash for being too long and bloated. Far Cry, while maintaining fair reviews, also received a fair amount of criticism for not innovating and remaining stagnant. Every once in a while, a ray of creative sunshine would shine through, like Immortals Phoenix Rising or the sequel to Mario Rabbids. Regardless of what you think about these games, something different than Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, or Just Dance is always welcome. Unfortunately, besides these two games, it's been a long time since Ubisoft has released games like this. That is, until fairly recently. Now, to be clear, Ubisoft is still far from perfect. I mean, they just released Skull and Bones, a bad ripoff of their own game, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and no one wanted that. However, there are also 4 releases that give me hope for the future of Ubisoft. Again, we have Rainbow Six Small, a roguelike game based on the Rainbow Six games, and Valiant Hearts Coming Home, a sequel to 2014's Valiant Hearts Great War, both of which are on Netflix games. Then we have 2 Prince of Persia games, neither of which are the remake everyone's been waiting for. Instead, they are both 2D games. One of them, Prince of Persia Lost Crown, is a Metroidvania, and the other, Prince of Persia Rogue, is of course a roguelike. Now, I haven't played all these games, although I have heard mostly good things. However, that's not really the point. The point is Ubisoft is once again releasing unique games that aren't bloated copy-paste versions of their previous better games. The game industry needs Ubisoft at its creative best, and making smaller titles like these is a big part of that. Well, that's about all I wanted to say on the topic. Let me know if I forgot something in the comments, and of course make sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video. I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you guys next time.